What's going on, you guys? If you're new here, my name's Morgan, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Ghost, which is why I have this ghosty here in my lap. We're going to talk a little bit about Ghost. I want to do a complete series with Ghost because Ghost is a double dapple, and there's so much I could talk about with Ghost. But I think the first thing we can talk about is just genetic imperfections with Ghost, because obviously Ghost has quite a few genetic imperfections that were passed to her from the parents and because of poor breeding. Just horrible breeding quality. So the first things first, you see that? I think I've talked about this before. You see that? That is a Ghost tongue. That is, here it goes. That is an overbite. You see how bad that overbite is? Some of her teeth aren't developed here. And on the bottom side. Yeah, she won't let me show it. So on the bottom side, Ghost is missing multiple teeth. Hold on. Come on, open. I know. She's missing 1, 2 teeth that by now they should have already been grown in, and they're not lost teeth. It looks like she never had teeth there to begin with. So that is another genetic imperfection that comes from bad breeding. But the overbite thing, so I have her sister Persephone. Persephone has actually grown out of her overbite, and the overbite is gone. But Persephone's overbite was not on the level that Ghost's overbite is. So with Persephone, you can see her tongue a little bit, but with Ghosts, so when you wake her up in the middle of the night, her tongue could be all the way out and her tongue gets dry. So I try to make sure I push her tongue back in as much as possible, because if her tongue hangs out too long, I feel like that's going to end up being a problem. So I try to kind of do her a little favor and get that tongue back in her head a little bit and get it a little soggy and a little wet. Because I don't know what's going to happen if, will her tongue fall off? Which I think is a very good question to ask. But I don't really know for sure if her tongue will fall off if it stays out of her mouth too much. But that is a genetic imperfection with Miss Ghost. Now, is she adorable? Absolutely. I think she's the cutest thing in this entire world. I mean, how can you say no to this face? How can you say no to this face? It's almost impossible. But that is a genetic malfunction or genetic abnormality. It's something that was passed to her, unfortunately. And another thing that we could talk about, genetic abnormalities. Obviously, she is a double dapple, which is all the white and the little bit of color on her. She is obviously a double dapple. And then in one of her eyes, this eye right here, there is starbursting in the pupil. She will not let me show you her eye. I can already guarantee you she won't let me show you her eye. I'm going to try to get a picture of her eye, and if I do, I'll post it here so you can see the starbursting in the pupils, because it is very, very noticeable, especially in her blue eye. And her other eye, I don't see the starbursting, but that does not mean it's there, not there. But that is another, it is a genetic abnormality, and most of the time bred on purpose. And you can say, well, I just didn't know. Well, how was I supposed to know? Genetic tests aren't really that hard. You should do your genetic tests, and by genetic tests, I mean send in an embark test, send in a Ginsall test, send in a wisdom panel, and send in a UC Davis test where they test the merle or the dapple merle length. Just do something so you know what these dogs are. For example, you can't tell it on Shadow or on Nyx, but both are dapples. Whiskey actually is a dapple as well. You can't tell, but maybe when he was a puppy you would have been able to tell. But Whiskey is a dapple, but it's hidden. It's a hidden gene for him now, because it's not obvious that you can't see it now. And with Demeter and with Ghost, it is also hidden. You cannot see it, but you can tell she's double dapple because of all the white. All the white is not normal in a dachshund. Now, you do have a cream that looks almost white, but that is genetically a cream. I saw one the other day, genetically a cream. The genetic test comes back cream with no dapple, or as you say, merle in the DNA strands. Just a regular old-fashioned cream, but appears white because of the levels of pigmentation. And they are not, they really are not frowned upon with how light they are. I have a friend that just got one that is 100% cream, no dapple, just cream. That's all that comes back in his DNA test and his embark test. So it's very interesting to see how these dogs are almost white. But then you have the people that talk about pink dachshunds. Pink dachshunds are not a thing. Double dapple dachshunds are frowned upon because they do come with a lot of health problems. Ghost is either 75% deaf or almost fully deaf. So I was cleaning just a little bit ago, and I have this pen setup that Brecken was in when he had his surgery, so the other dogs would not mess with him. So I have it set up right there. Or it's not set up, but I have it leaning over on the kennels right back here. And I'm cleaning, mopping everything, and I look over, and Ghost is asleep there. And I'm just talking, making noise, mopping, and she does not open her eyes one time. So hence why I believe she's deaf. But that is another genetic abnormality, a genetic imperfection that could have been prevented with proper breeding and proper techniques and proper just pay attention to your dogs kind of thing and not breeding at all. So even though you cannot tell she's double dapple, the white gives it away. With parents, you can't always tell like Whiskey because he is hidden. You can breed two hiddens together and end up obviously with a double dapple. You could end up with all kinds of imperfections like we saw with Demeter when you breed two dapples together. And sometimes they don't show anything. And sometimes you don't have the problems. But sometimes you do. And it's heavily frowned upon because it's just bad breeding practices, unethical breeding practices to breed two double dapples together, no matter how pretty they are. That was one of the reasons I took Ghost, because she's doesn't need to be bred. Her deafness is a genetic imperfection, her deafness is another genetic abnormality, genetic imperfection that I wish could have been changed. But unfortunately, we have her now. She will never be bred again, and she is here to stay. She's learning from Rue, which I think that's the worst part, is that she's learning from Rue. Rue has picked on her quite a bit because Ghost does not understand the basics of doggy etiquette. And she does not hear the growling very often. She might be able to feel the vibrations. She did once with Mr. Marbles, but she cannot feel the vibrations or hear. She might be able to. I'm not really sure, but she cannot hear them. So it's kind of going to be a challenge to train her, which I will talk about training with Ghost at another time. It's actually getting late, and Ghost needs to go to bed. You got that tongue showing. But it's just a process that I'm having to learn as well. But those are the Ghost genetic imperfections. We will get there with her training, and hopefully we will see improvement soon. I am working on socializing and with people and kids. I guess that's the same thing, kids, adults, the elderly, and other dogs as much as I can. She's watching my hand when I do this, because with her being deaf, it is a little bit harder. So we are working as we go. I'm taking her to the dog shows, to the craft fair, everywhere that I can take her so she can start learning. But anyways, that's it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as usual, you guys, we'll see you guys next time in the next video. See you guys later.